My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
You just found the perfect product that helps with staying cool during hot summer runs. No more gross warm water. Stay cool with this product from Gear Handle. This hydration tube cover helps keep your water cool and easily accessible. Stay hydrated during those long summer runs or even delay from freezing in the winter. Plus, they're compatible with various brands of water bladders and come in various colors. Visit gearhandle.com and use promo code H2O today.
Coming up on The Payoff, Amanda Marino is a certified recovery and life coach. She's a certified intervention professional, but most importantly, she's more than 15 years sober. She suffered great trauma as a kid and started drinking and using pretty early in life. Before her usage got out of control, she actually worked as an actress and a model, and now she uses some of those skills serving as an expert on A&E's new show, Digital Addiction. She actually leaned on some of that knowledge to help me out a little bit, talking about my digital addiction towards the end of our conversation. She's real cool. I asked her if she's ever done an intervention like the one on The Sopranos where Christopher walked out. She had some funny comments on that. But she shares her recovery, and her journey is incredible. She's the co-founder of Next Level Recovery, and I just mentioned some of the stuff she's doing, carrying the message as an expert on A&E. We're actually going to lead into our show, our conversation with Amanda, with some sound from that new show, Digital Addiction on A&E. But you know how the drill goes. First, my man Kevin Souza.
The difference between a lifestyle choice and a social media addiction is what happens in someone's life, the consequences. I mean, we all have that choice, to check out and check into another world. But with social media addiction, you can become completely checked out from reality, which, can be really toxic.
When you see yourself on A&E, on prime time, how does that make you feel?
Well, I grew up acting and modeling, so I've always seen myself on TV. But this was different because it was, it being in recovery. When I got clean and sober, I was like 200 something pounds. I had completely lost all my dreams as far as the entertainment stuff. Just like my last few auditions, I showed up very messed up and kind of ruined my reputation. And so when I got sober, I was like, I don't want to do the things I was doing before, but I would love to do something that has, some purpose and some meaning. And so I kind of manifested that from the time that I, changed my life. And then I had, so this happened, and it was always a dream from really the beginning for me, was to do something like this that had I could go on TV and be a person of substance and help people and make a difference.
Yeah. You can carry the message now. I think we all have. If I can only speak for myself personally, when you get sober, you realize that God has given you gifts, real gifts that you're able to, through your recovery, tap into those gifts and then help other people, which for me keeps my fire burning. I can do whatever I want that's going to quote unquote pleasure me, but that's the thing that keeps me moving.
Totally. Yeah. So it's just kind of there's things coming full circle. It's just pretty cool. It makes me really happy.
I heard you on a podcast. It was the guy did a great job. It escapes me who he is now, but I'll drop the link in here. He was talking about waking up, routine and stuff like this. This was a pod that was right before the pandemic.
Oh yeah, Wake Up the Sun.
Wake Up the Sun. That's it. Yeah, and he opened up. He kind of gave a live intro with you, and he said all these positive things about you. How you help people in recovery. You accepted the compliment, but you said that's just funny to hear somebody say that about me.
Well, I've known Matt a long time, the person who it was who put the podcast on. So hearing it come from him, it was just it just was very heartwarming, know?
Yeah. I mean, and it's hard sometimes for us to believe that, all the stuff you're doing right now, when you talk about the person who was walking into those auditions. It's quite the journey, I would imagine.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And then when I hear families, like whether it's in my personal recovery and professional, like tell me, like how much I've helped, like, it's like me, like I've helped. Sometimes that's the hard one because I was the person that like nobody's family wanted them to be around. Now, like my personal recovery, like people I've sponsored or clients, families, like love me in their life. And it's like, it's pretty insane. Like I was the one that's like, don't hang out with her. Don't bring her around,
Yeah.
Don't date her.
Let's go backwards and talk a little bit about the insanity. When was the first time you had a drink or a drug?
It's pretty insane. I was actually 4 years old. I chugged a beer. I had smoked marijuana at 9 years old for the first time. Really young.
How did this stuff get introduced to you?
Well, I come from like, the heavy traumatic childhood. So my mother married a man who was a psychopath basically, and was like this Mr., everyone in the community loved him, Mr. Church going, guy by day. And he was a drug dealer, physical and sexual abuser by night. So I was raised in a home with drugs and abuse and chaos and, these two sides of what was being shown to the world and like what was going on behind closed doors. So no wonder I like saw something and tried to chug it at 4 years old. I was already being abused.
Yeah. And you were already looking for an escape, I guess.
Yeah. And then I don't know how, I have a 9-year-old and a 16-year-old. I don't know how I found marijuana in 4th grade. Like it blows my mind. Like, how did that happen? I look back and I can completely, and because I came from what I came from and the upbringing, like that was my excuse for everything. Like what I went through, I'm supposed to be messed up. People like me, people that go through what I went through are, sometimes in institutions for their whole life, or they're prostituting, or, so I'm lucky I'm just like this. Like that was fully my whole MO.
Were you on the other side of some of that sexual abuse at the hands of this guy, this psycho?
I was abused. Yeah, I was sexually abused for 3 years.
I'm guessing you're not talking to anybody about this stuff as a young girl.
No, my mother, once my mom found, like my mom was scared for her life. Like he threatened her life on a regular, daily basis. So she was terrified. But finally, when she found out that I was getting sexually abused, she actually walked in on it. And that's when she finally like planned the getaway. We got away from him. She filed restraining orders. We like ran away in the middle of the night. And then he actually, so she took a stand then. And then he hired somebody to come back and abduct my younger sister, who was his daughter. I wasn't his daughter. He hired someone to kidnap my sister and bring her to Canada in front of me. So there was like more trauma. When we finally got away and we felt safe, then he came back again and took her.
Holy shit.
She was brought back on the news like a month later. I didn't go outside of my house for like a year, like without my mom like attached to me.
Wow. So you continue to, I guess you were in Fort Lauderdale when all this stuff happens?
This was in Fort Lauderdale, yeah.
And so how old are you when your mom finally breaks away? Because as much as you're terrified from obviously at the hands of this guy, I would think that does break a little bit of a branch off with that fear. Like, hey, mom, that's a hard decision for any woman to make, to get the hell out of there. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, but I think once she knew about the sexual abuse, that was like no matter what, she was getting out. You know what I mean? Like the physical abuse, she was terrified for her life. She was beaten all the time. I remember, I have like, visual memories, but my mom did put me in therapy once like all that kind of happened. So I've literally been in and out of like in therapy on and off since 7 years old.
Yeah. And your mom, from reading about you and listening to you, your mom was a very loving influence in your life.
Oh, she's great. Yeah, we're super close. She lives down the street. I was just at her house yesterday.
Oh, that's
I'm
awesome.
just so happy that she's been able to have healing in her life. Like she didn't get to do some of her healing until later in life,
Yeah.
I'm so fortunate that she encouraged me to get the help so young,
Yeah, I read that you said that, like one of the things, and I will jump back just kind of to your progression with addiction, but you wish you had saved yourself some of the pain, right? Because one of the most relatable things about your story to me is, man, I went to my first meeting in 2002 and I didn't have a year consecutively sober till 2012, right? So I'm in and out
That's pretty common. 10 years in and out.
Yeah.
That's about me.
And
that's the same.
And people, I don't know. I want people to understand that are around people that are struggling with addiction. Like that is kind of like, that's a scenario that plays out often. And at the end of the day, if somebody can get sober, that's a miracle.
Absolutely. It is a true miracle. And, I was introduced to 12 steps and to, mental health care and all that. Like I said, therapy at 7, but like the 12 step and the sobriety and those kind of things at probably like 14. And then I got sober at 26 in spade.
Wow. So what gets you to your first meeting at 14 or your first, any kind of recovery room?
Well, I didn't go to meetings at that point. It was more like programs, which introduced that. But I had, alcoholism and drug addiction and mental illness rampant in my family on both sides, Yeah. Dad was in recovery. Mom struggled, with her unresolved trauma. And my aunt was a heavy alcoholic, and she was in and out of recovery. And she spotted it in me. She was like, oh yeah, she knew. And she always believed in it for me, but she didn't believe in it for herself because she thought she was like too old. So I just was, I was in, juvenile detention center, psychiatric hospitals, rehabs, all at like 14, 15, 16.
How are you acting out?
I was just awful. I just, no rules applied to me. I snuck out of the house. I just did whatever I wanted. Took my mom's car before I had a license, stayed out all night, snuck out. I somehow worked in nightclubs, like cocktail waitressing and bartending before I was 18.
Wow.
Nobody cared back then of like IDs and pretty wild stuff. I was fearless. Because I was in so much pain, and no rules or laws applied to me in my brain.
I've never heard that, by the way. I was fearless because I was in so much pain.
I was. That's what I look at now.
Yeah.
I sought out. Like when I was young, drug dealer guys. I sought out. Nobody like came to me and like peer pressured me. I sought all that stuff out. I looked for it. I looked for the escape. Like my first, like to backtrack a tiny bit, my first, like I remember as far as like a thing that I did to feel like escape that I was aware of was shoplifting. I loved when I was little to like take something, not that my mom couldn't buy it for me, but to take it and the rush of getting away with it or the attention of getting caught.
Yeah, the rush.
That thing did something for me.
Yeah,
and I was conscious.
Yeah, that's like a prelim, right? To like the the addiction and stuff. What kind of drugs were you doing when you were, cocktail, just everything?
Yeah, I mean, I over the years I would kind of like was a mixture of things, when I was younger in high school, like acid and ecstasy and roofies, which were like a date rape drug. We took those like, on our own.
Yeah.
Xanax, like that kind of stuff, like really anything, mushrooms, alcohol. Hard drugs didn't come till a little older. Like I didn't try cocaine until, those were hard drugs. I'm sorry. Like ecstasy was a very hard drug. Ecstasy is a very hard drug, but we didn't look at it like that.
Sure.
Everybody like that we knew was doing it. So, but like, it was like, we will never do cocaine, we will never do. And I really didn't get into like pain pills until I was older. And those, like, I was able to kind of swap addictions over the years. Mm-hmm. But when it came to when I was pregnant and I had my son, I stayed like not completely sober, but I had like a little bit of wine when I was pregnant, like a glass here and there. But I was like literally hanging on with like my addiction was in full throttle, just waiting till I gave birth to like go all out. And then when I had him, I didn't even have a C-section or anything. They prescribed me pain medicine. And I just like, that's what kind of brought me to my knees. I was already like full addiction brain and just tick-tock waiting for the 9 months to pass so I could go all out. And I did. I got worse after I had him.
But you say that having your son did kind of save you.
Oh, he did. He was like a little angel. They say like, kids pick up on their parents, negativity and depression. This kid did not. He was just a bright light and was so happy. We called him Mr. Happy Baby. And he literally like saved my life. Like the guilt of the kind of mom I was for the first 18 months of my life could have either done one of two things. Could have either killed me or saved my life. And it ended up saving my life. And I walked through that pain of how awful it felt and shared about it and talked about it. And it really helped and empowered me. And it helps me share now with other women. Like the guilt and the shame will keep a lot of moms really sick. But if you just walk through it, you can change. Like now when my son needs something, he comes to me. I wasn't like that when I first got sober. He cried and wanted his dad because I wasn't present. But we can change that over time and with lots of healing,
Yeah, I was telling somebody this the other day, somebody that was brand new, right? Like a week or two. And they have situations that are just monsters in their life now that they feel like will never resolved, will never be resolved. And I just said to this guy, I said, you'll be surprised of all the things that you have put off the table that are unattainable in your life, bridges you've burned, relationships, I said, that will be back in play over time if you just embrace the one day at a time and let that fire, start to burn. And it's true. But people can't wrap their minds around it, nor should they try, I guess, right, when they start.
Yeah, I could have never wrapped my mind around my reality today. Like I had pretty, like I remember like making goals and like having things that I like dreamed of and trying to find new passions, since I destroyed a lot of really great dreams in my addiction, like a lot of us do, like that were not things that I could go back to. And I had to like accept that. But I remember when it came to the point where like everything that I had made on like a list of like a dream or a goal all happened. Like I accomplished it all. And I'm like, now what? Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Like really, we're truly capable of anything. And the healing that can happen in our lives, we can go from being the black sheep to being like the rock of the family. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. I want to before I get into your recovery, I want to ask just about the acting and modeling, because that was, I didn't know that about you. That was new for me. And I've done a little bit of research. How did that come together? And how was that experience for you in the middle of drugs and stuff?
Well, it started when I was a child. So, like a little bit at like 4 to 7, and then again in my tween and teen years. And then basically when I got into substances, I stopped. It helped me stay on a good path. Like when I was, even with my issues, like whenever I was doing a photo shoot, like I was getting like really good grades in school and all that stuff. Like if they were long-term, like I would do my school in the camper van and whatever. But when I chose to party more was when or what I called partying, which was, abusing and really, really abusing drugs. I couldn't do both. It didn't work for me. I looked like hell. I was up all night. I couldn't, I remember just going to like a couple auditions towards the end, and I just couldn't even do it. So it wasn't something I was able to pull off. Like some people are able to, go to college or go to auditions and be okay and pull it together. I couldn't. I was a complete mess. Yeah,
Amanda, I was that guy too. Like, I could not, like there were people who could keep jobs when they were like full blown addiction was going on. Like I just wasn't that guy. That's just not part of my story. I became towards the end just totally unemployable,
Totally. Yeah. It wasn't always like that.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing too, like, when we talk about like that 10-year of going back and forth, like I'm the kind of person that when I go back, like when I did go back, I'd be like, oh, it's going to be different this time. I'm just going to drink and I'm not going to take pills. And I could do that for like a couple months. My addiction's really sneaky. And then there's the one time when I go off and I don't come back. So that tricked me a bunch of times, being like, oh, look, I was able to stay sober for a couple months. But it's like I had to get into my head that maybe I'm not the person that picks up and gets a bottle the first day and chugs it, or like goes out and gets all these drugs. But like it eventually will lead me to that. And the time frame gets shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah. And then
the pain gets greater.
Yeah. And the pain it gets so bad. Like you said, the pain pills brought you to your knees. And I tell myself this, I actually hear people say it in meetings, but like, it's way harder to get sober than to stay sober, because like, I don't know what's going to happen if I were to ever drink again, or use again. Like, I don't know. I just don't even want to think about having to get back, because if you stay connected, you hear about people that leave and never come back. And today the stakes are so high with the opioids and stuff. Like you go out and you snort something with fentanyl in it, like it's lights out.
Yeah, that was another blessing. Was I was still, in my addiction and like the pill mill days.
Yeah, me too.
So like all the pill mills were, still in operation. Pills were still relatively inexpensive, but that shifted shortly after I got sober and people were going to heroin. Like I know heroin would have killed me. Like I couldn't even hang with like the more hardcore pain pills. Like I took like the big old school ones, but heroin would have killed me. Thank God I didn't get into that.
Yeah, I think there's, I feel the same way. And I think there's a lot of us out there that literally escaped. It's like, but by the grace of God, because what makes me different than the person who does the drugs that I would do that dies from it, because of what we're dealing with today. About your recovery. Yeah. So how did things start to happen for you? And when did you think like, okay, like this recovery thing, I can do it. And it feels good. Like, was that through your aunt that you mentioned, or was it a different avenue?
Well, a few things. I mean, one, being a mom and like facing like, how I was like staying up all night. I wasn't like a good mom. My kids sat in dirty diapers. I wasn't like enjoying being a mom. I was dreading it. I was like miserable. So like that kind of bottom was one kind of thing. I always also knew from being introduced and being in and out of, treatment and 12-step programming that like I eventually was going to end up there one day. And I kind of like told myself like, oh, maybe once I get married and have a kid, then I'll go back to like AA. Like I had this whole like, it all made sense in my crazy brain. Right.
Yeah.
But I kind of hit a place where, I was going to be in a place of maybe like losing full custody and stuff to my son. Like nothing had been put in place, but there was talks of like, if you don't get your act together, then things are going to shift. And so I remember calling, treatment centers in the yellow pages before, like, we looked on Google for them. Mm-hmm. And my aunt, I had actually found her passed away in her bed to the disease of alcoholism. And
yeah, let's make that clear. You found her.
I found her passed away in her bed. She didn't answer her phone. I knew she was in a relapse. I went over, looked in her window, and she was blue through her window. And I got worse before I got better from that for a couple months. And then that's when like she had left some money for me and I used it to go to rehab. And
that rehab was...
And I've stayed since.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It really is. And this is weird. I didn't have as traumatic a situation as you, but my parents would tell you that my uncle died of a drug overdose. He fell down the steps on opioids, and he left my mom some money, and that was the money that was used for me to go to my treatment center when I bottomed out. That's crazy shit. Yeah. Yeah, that's
amazing.
Yeah, that's so I get it. And for me, I don't know if it was like this for you. And look, I want to say this because people listen to this and they want to hear about. They just maybe want to continue to kind of use this as a meeting and a propeller in their recovery, but also they're curious. And not everybody needs to go to treatment to get sober. There's you hear of many different ways. For me, it was 12 steps, and I know guys that get sober through 12-step meetings. But I needed to be institutionalized in a sense where I went to a rehab, then I went to a halfway house, and it was so important for me to get that separation. What was that? Was that your same experience that things just changed when you went into this treatment center?
They didn't change right away. I still had that same like whole mentality, like things didn't apply to me, and I was like, the worst client for the first month. Uh-huh. And then I woke up, then a light bulb went off, and then things began to change. And I had been through it for so long that I was kind of like, if I don't do this now, then I'm going to keep doing this over and over, and things are just going to get worse. And so I didn't know if it was for sure, but like I remember wanting it to be and wanting to be like, they say, oh, only 3 of you will be sober in a year or whatever. I was like, I'm going to be one of them. Yeah. And sure enough, I was. And, I started to listen to the suggestions, like after being a jerk for the first month. And I started to try little things that like they were telling me and giving me assignments and then listening in the meetings. And, I got a sponsor right away and she had me dig into meditation right away. And like, I started to feel better. Like I didn't believe anything until I tried it and then like saw that it was working for me. And then I believed it.
And it speaks to the action that needs to be taken, right, to get well in this whole deal. Like I can go to everybody for their opinion, and I can think this and feel that, but the moment I actually do it, things start to change for me.
Absolutely.
Was there a turning point for you that you can point to when you were in recovery, in treatment, where you were like, okay, this is I'm in this now. I'm all in.
Yeah, I had a spiritual awakening when the owner sat me down and asked me why I was being such an a-hole, and said, "You've been doing this for so many years. You have nowhere to go. Like, what are you doing?" And whatever he said to me that day, it was just like a light. It just all clicked, and I was like, "I need to stop this. I need to do this and give this a chance." And that's when I felt like, I felt like I was not all in, but I felt like I was going to start giving things a little chance, and then just kind of following just what people told me to do. I was somebody that I don't like being told what to do. I still hate being told what to do. That's why I work for myself.
Yeah.
But when it comes to my healing and my recovery journey, and sometimes people have better eyes and ears than I do. So that, in that sense, I'm very open to being, given suggestions or ask for feedback or ask for people if they're seeing something that maybe I'm not seeing. That's different to me than being told what to do. That's support and love. And sometimes I can't see clearly. And so I need people to be my eyes and ears.
Yeah, and if you can find that gear for me, to be teachable, which even today, right, I get so hard-headed and my ego gets going and I don't need anybody's help. But the moment I become teachable is the moment that healing you talk about starts to take place for me.
Definitely. Yeah, that's one thing I always have to remind myself. I don't know anything still. I mean, I know a little. I have a little bit of life.
Well, you know a lot. I mean, look at what you're doing. You're practicing some of it, but it's cool. It's cool that you're humble, and that is how we learn. But I want to get to all that you're doing coming up in a minute. We'll get back to this conversation in a second. But right now, a word from our sponsors.
Hammock? Check. Arnold Palmer? Check. Motorized solar shades? Yes, please. Get your home spring ready with Blinds.com. Upgrading your home with custom window treatments from Blinds.com is a small project with a huge impact. Relax and let Blinds.com handle the install. It's easy. Just click installation at checkout. Plus, Blinds.com has a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Save 45% off selected products at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
The all-new Chevy Colorado is made for more. Stacked with the latest in-vehicle technologies like a class-leading 11-inch diagonal center touchscreen and an extra-large wireless charging pad. Plus, it features wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility to make staying connected easy wherever your adventure takes you. Chevy Colorado, made for more. Learn more at Chevrolet.com/truck/Colorado. Claims based on latest competitive data.
Socks are the #1 most requested item in homeless shelters. Underwear is the second, shirts are third. At Bombas, socks were first, made with comfortable details for everyday wearing. Then underwear and shirts too, all designed to perfectly fit. At Bombas, every item you purchase means you're donating an essential clothing item to someone in need. One comfortable clothing item for you, one donated to someone in need. Bombas, comfort for all. Get 20% off your purchase at bombas.com/Spotify.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. That's the sound of another sale on Shopify. The moment a business dream becomes reality. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. They simplify selling online and in person and provide 24/7 support so you can focus on successfully growing your business. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/offer22, all lowercase.
So you leave treatment, and then where do you go from there?
I did what most people don't do. I wouldn't highly recommend it to anyone. I went home to, at the time, my son's father was my husband, and he still drank, and my son. And
after how many days?
I stayed for 3 months.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Yeah, I stayed for 3 months. I said, finally, I was like, just keep me until whenever, whatever,
Yeah.
just keep me. And so I want this to be the last time. So I stayed for 3 months, and then I went home, and then within a week, it just didn't work. You know, he was still living his life. He didn't, you know, he wasn't like I was. He was, you know, he had his drinking, and
I get it,
sometimes
yeah.
he drank a little too much, but he wasn't like me. And so I had done a lot of damage too in the marriage and my addiction. So I had asked, you know, we had discussed, and he moved out, and I had to learn how to like live and take care of myself on my own, because I hadn't done that ever, you know?
Yeah.
I didn't have to learn how to like little things, like how to brush your teeth sober, how to like,
That's
how
true,
to do
though.
laundry sober, how to like, you know, everything. But it was really good for me to have. I'd be jealous of people. It's funny that that were in halfway houses, like all the girls that got to hang out all the time.
Yeah.
It seemed very sorority like to me, and I was like, you know, taking care of a household and a kid, and I had a lot of responsibilities. But it really gave me a lot of. It gave me a really strong foundation, you know?
Yeah, you were thrown right into the responsibility and in recovery, and that's kind of sink or swim time, right? Because you can be overwhelmed and say whatever, you know, woe is me, or you can jump into the program and kind of fight, right? I mean, that's a way out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I jumped all in. I mean, I was like at everything, you know, camp outs and dances and like anything that was, you know, I was all about everything.
Now,
and it maybe made it my life.
You're married now, but as a woman, I always like to ask people this, like, and for me, I just drank and drugged so much around relationships. How did you reintegrate into relationships in sobriety? I think people always find this unfathomable.
I'm actually divorced a second time.
Oh, you are? Okay. Okay.
So I was married to my son's father, and I was in a relationship for 10 years, and about a year ago, I got divorced. But my first 4 years of my recovery, once I separated from my son's father, I just focused on myself. I did date a little bit, you know, after the first couple years, but like I knew that was an issue for me, and I just wanted to like figure stuff out by myself.
Yeah.
And figure out who I was and what I liked and like all of those things. So that wasn't, and I never had like, I knew people had like men that were predators to them, but like I never had any of that experience. I think because I kept like this guard up of like, I'm here for my recovery and like, don't mess with me.
Yeah.
But then when it came time that like I was like ready for something, you know, my daughter's father appeared, and you know, we built a beautiful life and had a great 10 years together, and we're still friends today. You know, we've been apart for a little over a year.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay.
Yeah, we still get along. I have two great children's fathers who I co-parent wonderfully with.
Yeah, and that sounds
that's a gift of recovery.
Totally. My brother Michael was the same way. He was similar to you. He's sober, and he had his daughter, and he you know, this, I'm not breaking anything wide open here. He had his daughter, and it took him about a year and a half, maybe a little over a year before he actually got sober. He was trying, he was in and out, and you know, he was like the villain in the family, and he basically one day, I guess, I think he was getting ready to go score, and he had to get his daughter back to her mom, and he was just racing around, and all he wanted to do was get rid of her so he could go do what he was going to do. And he was kind of like, what am I doing? And now he and that woman who, you know, had vilified him, and for good reason, they're like super close, you know, and he's a godparent to one of her children. And it's just, and that does not happen. Like what you just described, what I just told you about him, that doesn't happen without sobriety.
Yeah, it's pretty rare, you know, but my kids flourish because of it. Like they're not, you know, they come from what used to be called a quote unquote broken home, but it's not a broken home in our house. We're full of love, and everyone, you know, they're so loved everywhere that they're not like, it has not harmed them. They've gone through things, you know, and they're supported through it. And that's the gift of recovery.
When did you find that you wanted to make this something that was going to be, you were going to do this for a living and really give back? And when did that happen for you? Early on?
No, after I had about 4 years, and I worked at a fancy hotel for the first 4 years of my recovery, which really helped me to like speak better to people. It taught me a lot of great work ethic. And then I had a girlfriend that did like marketing for treatment, and I kept asking her about it, she did like business development and clinical outreach, and she would do events and like all these things. And she basically taught me some things and helped me get my first, entry level position. And then I just worked up from there. I worked on the business end of treatment for many years, worked with employers like EAPs and the airlines and helping their people get treatment. And then I started doing training on the side for coaching and case management and interventions, and did apprenticeship for a couple years, under people and doing it on the side. And then I contracted under larger companies for some time as well. And then I realized I didn't want to work in treatment anymore. And so I just took a plunge and just left and went on my own. And then I was on my own for about 6 months. And then I found Next Level with my business partner now. And
you found it
beginning of 2020. Yeah.
Yeah. So you started it at the beginning of 2020, and you guys, okay, so you're a life coach. I want to ask some questions about this. You can kind of work as a sober companion sometimes, or you can work as a sober companion. You're also like a conduit, right, to people that are trying to find recovery. How do you do that?
Well, I actually have a whole company. We have a team of interventionists, coaches, and I don't do the companioning anymore.
Okay.
I have people that do that for us.
I saw that you have like 8 people that work for you, or there's it seemed like a bunch.
We have our core team, but we also have 25 others that aren't on, or maybe even more, that aren't on the website that are just available for certain jobs. But I don't know. I just try to be honest, and I want people to see that, what maybe they think recovery looks like isn't what it looks like. It can look like anything, and you can have, it looking great on the outside, falling apart on the inside, and that's okay. There's a place for you. Not everyone needs, like you said, treatment. Some people can go different routes. There's just different journeys and pathways for anybody. And people that are suffering in silence, that's one thing I think social media has really helped with, is that we can reach people in masses that we couldn't normally reach before. And sometimes sending a message to someone is a lot less scary than picking up a phone and saying, hey, I'm having trouble with drinking or a drug addiction. That's scary.
Yeah.
So it gives a lot more people, access to knowing that they're not alone, that, things that they're going through, other people are going through, that there is help and hope out there, So that's one thing I do love about the piece of social media and being honest and reaching out to people in that way, is that people are scared and that they don't have to be. They can just send a message to start,
Yeah, it's and that's what this conversation is all about. People, I think sometimes are like I was, right? It's hard to get to a meeting. You're scared sometimes, and I think it's cool to have content out there like you produce. And this podcast where people can listen and can drop in and be like, oh, okay. These people are like me. People in recovery are some of the outlaws of society that I love. They're next to you at 7-Eleven, but you just don't think they're that person, and it's right. When you walk in, you're like, man, this is my group. These are my people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the people that we connect with are definitely not people we would unless we were in recovery, would never, maybe cross paths, but here we are, all different versions of the same kind of pain.
Now you're very easy to talk to, but I can also get that you're no nonsense, which I would imagine is good for this job, right? I mean, you seem like you get right to it. Is that a strength? Honestly, that's what we could use more of in recovery. I think people that just kind of are a little more direct. And how do you use that in your job? I mean, how effective is that kind of communication?
Well, I mean, when it just depends on the kind of situation. In an intervention situation, I am called the pit bull. I had a former client nickname me the pit bull, and we kind of went with that. I'm very kind and loving, but I'm no nonsense in an intervention. But when it comes to coaching or case managing people, I really am gentle to meet them where they are. But when people make their word or make commitments to things, I'm very direct about holding them accountable to it. I'm not a sugar. I've learned how to be a little softer.
Okay.
And a little less opinionated and direct. But I still speak my mind, and it can't hold back certain things. I'm very true and upfront. What you see is what you get. What I'm feeling, you'll usually know. And but I love hard, and I care. Like, I have a huge heart, but I also don't take any shit.
Well, yeah, and I can tell it's a strength of yours. What do you do? Because I know I was talking to a buddy of mine, and I mentioned to him I was going to chat with you, and like I was giving him your background. He's a sober dude. He was interested, and he was like, "What? Can you ask her what it's like to just do an intervention?" I think a lot of people will be curious about that. Like, not that you can tell somebody how to do it. I mean, it's obviously a real skill, but I guess how do you prepare? Because I got to imagine that is an emotional, spin cycle. How do you get ready for that, and how do you decompress?
Well, we try, we have learned a lot over the time, that we've been doing it. So we learned from other people, and then we learned from our own trial and errors. We take time. We like to move slow, and we like to bring in a number of professionals. Like, we have, one of our psychiatric nurses speaks to each person that's going to be involved. We get lots of information. We get family history. We just get a ton of information. We meet with them, and different professionals on our team meet with them before, really to get to know. So like when we walk in, we feel like we know the family, we understand the person. So we're not just walking into some chaos.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it can be, right? Sometimes all the plans go out the window, but we at least have a lot of information walking in. And sometimes, there's two different models there that we use. There's a few models, but we use invitational, which is where you invite the person to this family meeting. Like, they know that something is going to go on, so their guard is a little down. And then there's the Johnson model, which is the more surprise method, which we figure out which one will be most appropriate, or even a combination of the two based upon what we learned about the family and the individual.
Yeah.
So, we go in and we just try to connect and align with them. Like, I will disarm myself. Like, I'll do things like sit on the floor, or we try not to be threatening. We try to come in and really align with the client sometimes, so it really just depends on the situation. But I love when we do an intervention and we become connected to the person, and we become just something, a resource that can stay in their life long after we're done working with them. Just check on them, every so often if they need something, or, we try to stay involved and be available to the families that we serve.
What's the best immediate outcome of an intervention? Like, they're in a car going to treatment?
I mean, most of them go, honestly, the first day, the day of. Most go. And the ones that don't go the first day usually go within a week. And that's because the family holds boundaries, because we have to do a lot of work with their family on the front end. Make sure that they do their own work and they have a thing. So yeah, we've had one that we thought was going to be so hard. We got there and it was like a TV, one of the TV show ones. Like, each person read their letter. The mom said, "I'm going to go," and we went, and it was that easy. And she stayed, and it was and sometimes you think they're going to be, really, it's going to be a breeze. And then there's, some hidden things that come out. There's some families think that their loved one is on substances. And then we get there and we find out, okay, they're not on substances. It's actually a psychotic episode.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of moving pieces, but we believe it takes a village, and we use, we bring in the right professionals, and our team to work together and help the whole family unit, because the whole family has to do work for the intervention and the treatment to be successful.
Yeah, that's incredible. You ever see the Sopranos episode where they do Christopher's intervention?
Yes, I've seen the Sopranos, all of them. Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, that's drug addiction and interventions aren't funny, but that, I would imagine that you haven't had that happen.
Yeah, no.
That's always.
I have had some crazy things. I had a teenager shirt off come up to me, because we work with a lot of adolescents too.
Uh-huh.
Come up to me and call me all kinds of names in the book, like chest up to me. I heard a gun cocked upstairs. I've had people threaten me. I've had people run. I've had all kinds of stuff.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I'm sure it's.
It can be wild, but we try to avoid that. So now when we work with adolescents, we tend to move slower, like go meet them first and kind of let them know, hey, your parents hired us and like, we're going to try this at home. And if it doesn't work, then we want you to go to treatment. So then when we do come to get them for treatment, it's not a shock. They knew that we were coming.
How did you, like, this is amazing, by the way. I appreciate you sharing all this with me, and I'll wrap it up in a little bit, but I got a couple more things. How do you help, like, how do you learn, because one of the things that you're involved in now with, the digital addiction, the show is on A&E. It's Monday nights, right?
Yeah, it's Mondays at 10 Eastern.
But you can get it on, I'm guessing it's on demand and wherever, right? Stream it.
I believe so. I know it's on the A&E app because I'm not 100% sure, but you probably can, just like anything else, right?
Yeah, I'm sure you can. And the A&E app, I've been on there for other stuff too. What do people do about, like, the addiction with cell phones and social media is out of control right now, and that's how you found your way onto TV screens all over the world. But like, what the hell is how do people stop that? And do you have any suggestions for people to curb that? I mean, it's pretty crazy right now. I think it's just a huge problem. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, if most of us took like the quiz, we'd all probably, most of us would fail, right? But for me, I've just kind of I took 6 months off of all social media, when I was filming the show.
Wow.
And just kind of, and I had like my woman that posts that manages our next level of social media. I had her go on and just post as me for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I just took time away and just reevaluated my relationship with it and looked at what, area, just really took some space from it. It really was, I probably am going to do it again, to be honest. It's very healthy. It felt so good. I only saw what I saw in my day to day. And there's something that's so refreshing about that. Like if I wanted to send pictures to people that I'm close to, I sent them a couple pictures or, it was just, it just felt so, it just felt really good. So digital detoxes are good, making sure you take time away. They have the new focus stuff on the phone, on the iPhone, that you can have your phone not ring when you're driving, or not ring when you're in your home, or not ring when you're, from this time to this time, utilizing those things and really setting boundaries with yourself. And if you have children, my kids, my daughter, she's 9. She could be she could play on the thing with her friends and talk to all. I have to really limit her. And my son is 16, he likes video games, but, he's very balanced. He goes to the gym, he has a girlfriend, he goes to the beach, he does all this stuff, but he plays some video games at night here and there. So it's just a balance, making sure that our personal connections are being, are we just commenting and liking stuff on people's social media and not talking to real people in life and getting together with friends and cause that's not real. None of that shit's real. I mean, it's false connection, in my opinion.
And I and that's what, obviously, right? It's it gives you that endorphin rush for a second, and it kind of quiets whatever the hell you're looking for. And then you're just not getting you're not getting any better. This is about that's why recovery is awesome, because you get in front of someone more often than not, and you're connecting with them. And there's a magic that comes off of that you're not getting that shit on social media. It's just never happening.
No.
It gives you that. It gives me the feeling, and that's why recovery, I'm so lucky that I can always go back to it. It gives me the feeling that alcohol and drugs used to give me, but it gives it to me long term. I've got to work for it. And the social media component is that's even worse than alcohol and drugs. That's it's so fleeting. It's just why am I doing this? And I see myself going for my phone and getting almost twitchy. And it's dude, you need to chill. Whoa. I mean, I'm 45. I'm a friggin' teenager,
But I mean, we're some of the worst in our age group, we just are, because we have our work on it and there's all this stuff. And it's there's the one things that were touched on in this week's episode were the doom scrolling, where you're scrolling, looking to make yourself feel bad, or the thirst posts, which are, how many women's asses do you see on Instagram?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's called a thirst trap, trying to get that, attention. So it's we have to look at our motives and just kind of be mindful, what are we doing? What is it for? It got blurry for me. I was trying to like, be this person of like, very outspoken about my recovery, but then it started to feel like a burden. And that's when I was like, I need to like stop. Like it started, people's comments and weird messages and stuff like that were affecting me. And that's when, it was really helpful for me to take a break.
Was it hard the first couple of days when you took a break? Was it similar to addiction or was it freeing right away?
For me, I was just like super ready. So I was fine. I didn't even miss it at all.
So you didn't have to really practice anything or have somebody keep you accountable. Nothing.
No, I mean, I had the girl that does my, so I didn't disappear. Like as far as the world was concerned, she was posting as me, and I just didn't have to worry about any of it. It felt like such a relief, and it just kept me. I felt so much more present. And the only reason I went back on was because I co-hosted a conference in Utah in March, and I was like, all right, there's no way I can ask her to like post all this stuff while I'm doing this conference. Like I have to get on there, and so then I've been on March.
Yeah, that's great. So, I appreciate that. That's like revealing. Like the 6 months is the real deal. So that's like super impressive. And I'm so down the rabbit hole, right? Like I'm like, I can't do that. It reminds me.
Try 24 hours.
Yeah.
Try 24 hours. That's what like a digital detox. Just try 24 hours of like just using your phone as a phone.
Yeah. Do you have to? Do you recommend taking the apps off the phone?
If it's hard for you, I mean, I did for 6 months. You can leave them on there and not go through. It just depends. And then, like I said, like that new, like if you have iPhone,
yeah.
So that it's in the settings, the focus, like that's a game changer. So now, like when I'm driving, my phone doesn't ring. It's do not disturb.
Yeah.
That way I'm not worried about because I was like texting and driving and responding to things. And like this way, when I drive, I'm just driving. When I'm doing something I'm just doing that. Like I became so like, always tasking in like 20 different directions, like I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I heard you talk about that. Like and let's get back to the recovery. I'll let you out of here or the alcohol and drug stuff. Yeah, by the way, I appreciate that. You going over that with me, and I think a lot of other people do. I think it's something that people really have no clue how to broach it. I think it's like, there's just a fear about that. Now, you talked about in sobriety, I've heard you say like you're to a point in your life where you're not 100 million directions at once. Like in recovery and in your life, you found the ability to just show up and be in one place. How have you done that?
Burned myself into the ground, to be honest, just like I do with most things. But I was so go for so many years and pulled in so many different directions and volunteered for it. Nobody else did it, but I was like not emotionally connected to myself for so many years because I was so on the go and so on the grind, so goal focused. But like I just didn't even feel for a number of years and lost full connection with myself and my emotions.
And this is in sobriety.
In sobriety, yeah. For a few years.
Yeah, which people will be. I don't know. Like shit happens in sobriety and recovery. Life breaks out, and you can check out and still stay sober, but it's not even close to as fulfilling, right? As it is to be present somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea until I stopped it that it was even going on. Like, that's how crazy it is. Like, it was like my way of protecting myself, but not knowing that it was like all subconscious. But once I stopped and like took a deep breath, so much hit me. You know what I mean? And I was like, I was trying to, not judging myself, and I totally understand what I was doing and why I did it. But like, I don't want to do that anymore. My priorities now are like being, just being present, like it's always being with my kids, but like being with my kids in another way, like enjoying life, work and goals and all that stuff is not my number one anymore. It's not my number one focus. It's still there.
Yeah. What is and I've heard you say like you used to feel almost shameful about saying that money was your motivation, but it kind of was, and it's not anymore. And I think that's a really good place to be. I know for me, that's when I'm actually subconsciously, not even meaning to, but I'm moving towards career success when I'm not thinking about it and I'm not attached to the end shit,
Can't say I've never been like fully motivated by money. Like, it's not my motivator. It's passion combined with success and like the things that making money can bring me as far as enjoyment in life with my family. And that I'm totally okay with. I used to feel like bad about that, and I don't anymore. But like, I can work smarter and, and still work hard, but have balance and boundaries. I don't have to spiral out of control to like get where I need to be. I can be more strategic, and that's what I'm learning,
What does your recovery look like today? Like how do you practice recovery in your everyday life?
Yeah, I go to, an in-person meeting or two a week. I go to a couple of Zoom meetings. Like, they fluctuate. Sometimes I go to 2 a week. Sometimes I don't. It just depends. I keep like a very I call it flexible structure in my life, because that way I don't feel bad if I don't do something, because I used to do that. I'd be like, have all this stuff I'd have regimented, and if I didn't hit one of the things, I'd beat myself up. So I don't do that anymore.
Okay.
I'm gentle with myself. I speak to my sponsor almost every day. I've been in therapy for about 2 years. I do different like intensives, like, trauma intensives, or like, professional like workshops that are, for self, like to work on self. So yeah, I take care of myself. I pray, I journal, I read, all kinds of things, I work with people that are new in recovery. I meditate. I like to spend time outdoors. That's like where I most connect to like my higher power, is like in nature, mountain, beach.
Me too. Yeah.
So I try to, make time to do that. And just like enjoy the little things, like especially with my children, because it goes so fast. My son's 16, almost 17. My daughter's 9, almost 10. And it's like just flying by.
Yeah, it's like weird. All you want to do when you start is get a ton of time, and then you have time and you're like, wait, let me just kind of slow this down and enjoy it.
Slow down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I try to be of service, like not just in recovery, but in life in all respects, and just try to be a good person and do the next right thing, and try to improve my spiritual condition and improve my insides.
All right, last question for you, Amanda. When you're in a 12-step meeting, and a young woman walks up to you and she's like, I don't know what to do. Like, how do I do this? What do you say to them?
I give them my phone number and, tell them to give me a call, and tell them to come again, tomorrow, and help them kind of connect, maybe introduce them to other women, because I can't, and be able to take it all on by myself, but just, tell them to keep coming to meetings, give themselves a break, and to, listen to the suggestions and try them and apply them.
Yeah. Like, there's not a magic bullet, right? You just you have to kind of keep coming. And
there is and there's so many ways now. Like I'm not as like black and white as I used to be. I've worked with lots of people professionally that don't have the same recovery journey as me, and I see it successful for them, and I'm supportive of that too. I used to think there was my way or no way, and that's just not what I believe anymore either. I know what works for me, and I'm willing to help anyone with that, or help them find what they think might work for them.
What's it like? What's it like with the last name Marino growing up in South Florida? How's that been?
I just got that name a few years ago.
Okay.
But I do hear a lot of the, Dan Marino.
Oh,
stuff.
come on. Yeah, I love Dan Marino.
Yeah, I was born and raised here, so yeah, I hear a lot of that.
One thing I will say positive of social media, right? I DM'd you, and that's why this podcast is going to be out there, hopefully helping people. So that's a definite positive.
Totally, yeah. There's so many positives to it. There's definitely so many positives. So thank you so much for reaching out, and for your interest, and for your time, and for what you're putting out there as far as, helping people. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. And next Tuesday, this will go up, so I'll shoot you the link next Tuesday.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for your time, Amanda. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Have a great day.
Okay. All right.
Bye, Peter.
Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening to the Payoff with Pete. Once again, I'm Pete Souza. And of course, we are part of the Rogue Media Network. All kinds of good podcasts you can find at roguemedianetwork.com. And of course, you can find this podcast and all those other ones wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, other spots like that.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.
Hey, Cricket customers, Max with ads is included with your Cricket $60 unlimited plan at no additional cost. Nice! Max is the streaming platform where you can watch Scoob, Meg 2 The Trench, The Nightmare on Elm Street collection, and so much more. Remember me. Just log in with your Cricket username and password to experience Max on all your favorite devices.
We've never seen this before.
Max, the one to watch for a good scream with Cricket. Phone plan streams in standard definition. Programming subject to change. Fees, terms, and restrictions apply. See cricketwireless.com for details.
Are you a podcaster? Let's talk podcast hosting. Are you tired of your current podcast host? Need real support in a community that gets it? At Rogue Media Network, we offer top-tier podcast hosting services to help you thrive. From hosting and distribution to dedicated support, we've got you covered. Starting as low as $25 a month. Join our community of passionate podcasters today. Contact us at hello@roguemedianetwork.com.